Part 27. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 261. At the same time, the imperial capital of the Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty was in a mansion covering an area of 100 acres. General Guanglong was sitting in his courtyard, his brows furrowed and his eyes narrowed, as if he was thinking about something. After a long time, the sound of footsteps came from behind Guanglong. "General, you are so happy. The war between good and evil is about to begin, and you still have time to sit here." The person who came was none other than Chopin, the Prime Minister of the Immortal Dynasty of the Great Zhou Dynasty. In the eyes of outsiders, Chopin and Guanglong were not directly related, but secretly, they were actually brothers who had a life and death relationship. Seeing the person coming, Guanglong glanced at Chopin helplessly and said, "Have I offended you in any way, Chopin? Are you asking me to lead troops this time in front of His Majesty? Aren't you kidding me? You know, I am about to prepare to break through the Immortal King realm. If you ask me to lead troops there at this time, won't this delay my cultivation? I really admire you." Hearing this, Chopin laughed it off, sat down in front of him unceremoniously, and comforted him, "I'm not harming you, I'm helping you." Guanglong raised his eyebrows, somewhat confused about the meaning of the sentence. "How did you help me?" Chopin glanced at Guanglong with an evil look and said, "What do you think the chances of winning are His Majesty's sending 100,000 troops to Guan County?" Hearing this, Guanglong replied without any thought, "That must be 100%. I can kill them all by myself alone." After hearing this, Chopin shook his head and said, "The odds of winning are naturally 100%, but it is only 100% after the battle. It does not mean that we can take back Guangjun." "Why?" Guanglong frowned. Seeing this, Chopin had no intention of beating around the bush and explained, "First, when demon race first entered, Kaiwan City had already been tampered with, and the demon suppressing array had been destroyed. Therefore, the city lord of Kaiwan City I have already joined the demon race before. Secondly, demon race's invasion this time is just a test. It is not really about starting a war with us. If a war really starts, then they will not only send 2 demon soldiers, but 2 demon soldiers will, so, this is just a test. But in the end, even if we win, we can't get back the lost cities. After all, they worked hard to get them. How can they send them back to us in good condition? So, demon race must have a conspiracy. Third, have you heard about the cause of death of Sirius, one of the 12 generals of the demon race?" Hearing this, Guanglong nodded and replied, "Of course I have heard of it. It seems that it was surrounded and suppressed by a mysterious force." Hearing this, Chopin showed a strange smile and said, "So the most important thing is this third one. We don't know about this mysterious force. We can't guess what strength he has. Maybe they also started this war, maybe not, but their contribution is inevitable, which is to eliminate Sirius, one of the 12 generals, so the reason why I let you go this time is to get in touch with this mysterious force." Hearing Chopin's coherent words, Guanglong Mao suddenly opened his eyes, nodded, and couldn't help but admired, "It's really you. You kid is full of intrigues, so it turns out that you've ended up here." Marshal King Ji Tian, who was sitting on the red dragon horse, saw this scene and said nothing, and walked straight towards the city. The body of the red dragon horse is the same as that of an ordinary horse, but its tail is a little different. It is a bit like a crocodile's tail. Its head is not much different from that of a crocodile, but it has 2 more horns and 2 long ones next to its nose. Su, except for the body, is indeed very dragon-like. The 2 nodded slightly, looked at him and asked. Seeing this scene, Chopin smiled helplessly and said nothing. 3 days passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye it was time for the 100,000 strong army to set off. The soldiers carried swords at their waists and spears in their hands, with firm expressions on their faces, as if even if there was an ancient dragon in front of them, they would dare to rush towards it without fear of death. The Crimson Flame Horse possesses the strength of the human immortal realm, but its speed is not comparable to the speed of the strong celestial immortal realm, so it is a perfect monster to equip the army. A few days later, after a long journey, 100,000 troops finally arrived in Guangjun. The two demon soldiers quietly looked at the towering city opposite, frowning slightly. Right in front of the 100,000 strong army, there was a middle-aged man with a majestic face and wearing thick black armor sitting on a horse. This man was none other than Martial King Ji Tian, a strong man with the strength of the immortal king. I saw that each of the 100,000 troops was equipped with a fiery red war horse. The names of these horses were Red Flame horses. Okay, if that's the case, then follow my previous order and tell all demon race children to retreat. As for this place, give them a reward. Chopard shook his head and objected, this is not a conspiracy, it is just my guess, and I can't guarantee that it is completely correct. As everyone knows, among the people, a man wearing a black robe and a bamboo hat is watching the scene quietly. He is the Shadow Demon. This is the soul of the army, which can only be touched by the elite soldiers selected from 1,000 miles together. After the 100,000 strong army was far away, Soul Demon's eyes lit up and he left the place under the cover of the crowd. Around the imperial capital, people from the great Zhou immortal dynasty gathered everywhere, talking and discussing one after another. The voices were very noisy, but what could be heard clearly was congratulations to the army on their victory. After a long time, the figure of the man in black robe appeared in front of the two of them. At his feet is a red dragon horse with dragon race bloodline. Outside the imperial capital, the arrival of the 100,000 strong army naturally shocked the people of demon race. Half a month ago, under Qin Xian's order, he came to the great Zhou immortal dynasty and hid there for 7 days. Are you done with what I told you to do before? At this time, in Guangjun, countless powerful sects were watching the scene quietly. But Guanglong really didn't care, thinking that Chopard wanted to keep a low profile, and nodded, as if he understood you. Demon race camp. As you command. Then he turned to look at the generals behind him to see if there was anyone who had not arrived. After finding that they were all present, he commanded an army of 100,000 people and walked straight towards Guangjun. The aura exuded by everyone shook the shattering void sky, and from time to time there would be a burst of killing sounds. Ji Tian nodded with a kind face. See you, Lord Demon Soldier, the man in black robe said with a respectful look on his face. I saw an army of 100,000 people waiting in formation, standing there in uniform order. At a glance, they were all soldiers wearing black armor. The man in black robe nodded, my subordinates have already completed all the tasks that you two adults have ordered. After a long time, Guanglong also came here, clasped his fists at Martial King Ji Tian and said, Martial King. Hearing this, the man nodded and disappeared. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 262. Inside the Lord's mansion of Fengcheng City. Martial King Ji Tian sat on the front seat with a golden sword, looking at the people below with a pair of sharp eyes, and said solemnly. The demon race's invasion of our territory this time is completely provoking our majesty. Of course, our great Zhou will naturally accept his provocation and will definitely return it to them with 10 times the power. So I have decided that in the first battle, Admiral Ji Xing will lead a charge with 1,000 soldiers and horses to destroy demon race's arrogance these days. When everyone heard this, they did not refute, but cupped their hands and said, I will obey the marshal's order. As soon as the words fell, an order was issued. Ji Xing, who was in the military camp, immediately mounted his horse and led 1,000 troops towards the demon race camp. 1,000 people is not a lot, and with the war horses, At a glance, it can be regarded as a vast army. Especially the sound of the horses trampling caused the earth to tremble, and one look at it will set off an unstoppable power in the heart. It's a pity that Ji-Seeng may be in vain this time. Looking at the demon race position in front of him, Ji-Seeng, who was sitting on his horse, smiled disdainfully and said in a cold voice, "How dare you demon races invade my city of Dezhou? Let me see if I don't kill you today. Abandon the armor." Shelf. A few breaths later, when the speed of the warhorse reached a certain level, Ji-Seeng exploded all his profound immortal realm strength, wrapped the warhorse and himself, and rushed forward at lightning speed, holding a spear in his hand and kept firing. Volatile. The next moment, I saw a large stream of sweeping gun blades aimed at the demon race position and blasted away, creating a large plume of dust and smoke in an instant. But Ji-Seeng didn't look happy, but showed a trace of doubt. Logically speaking, there should be screams when the gun blades hit the position these few times, but all Ji-Seeng heard was a roar and not a single scream at all. Is it possible that every shot I shot hit them? They couldn't even let out a scream. Ji-Seeng couldn't help but think of it, and then rushed in. With a sweep of his consciousness, he realized that there was no one in the camp. It was completely an illusion, and looking at the traces on the ground, demon race had just left not long ago. Immediately afterwards, 1,000 soldiers and horses followed. Looking at the situation nearby, all the soldiers looked at each other in confusion and were a little at a loss. Only one braver soldier looked at Ji-Seeng and asked, "General, should we continue the pursuit now or?" Ji-Seeng glanced at him, shook his head, and said thoughtfully, "I still understand the principle of not pursuing a poor enemy. If you escape, just escape. Escape first and see what the marshal says." "Yes, General." Seeing this, the soldier nodded. A dramatic battle spread throughout the immortal dynasty realm of Great Zhou, causing all the powerful men to look at each other with some confusion. Why did demon race retreat? Qin Feng, who was in the tomb of 10,000 ghosts, naturally heard it, but his expression did not change at all, as if he had already guessed this scene. Gu Cheng, who was sitting next to him, looked a little strange and couldn't help but ask, "Master, they didn't fight, so what should we do?" Qin Feng glanced at him and said a word lightly. "Wait." Seeing this, Gu Cheng scratched his head and didn't ask any more questions, but he still had some doubts and confusion in his heart. Inside the Windy City Lord's mansion. Hearing the news from Ji-Seeng, Ji Tian, who was sitting in the City Lord's palace, frowned slightly, raised his eyes to look at the people below and asked, "I wonder what you guys think." Hearing this, everyone looked at each other, not knowing what to say, but still pretended to be deep in thought. After a long time, Guanglong, who was sitting next to Ji Tian, stood up and said, "Marshal, how about you let me take 10 celestial immortal realm strongmen to catch up and see what's going on?" Hearing this, Ji Tian did not agree immediately, but thought for a moment before saying, "I wonder, General Guang, are you 100% sure?" Hearing this, Guanglong nodded confidently, patted his chest and said, "Don't worry, Marshal, even if these demon race brats set up some conspiracy, I dare to stop it alone, so you can rest assured." Seeing this, Ji Tian nodded and said, "Okay, in that case, this time, General Guanglong, you will lead 10 strong men from the celestial immortal realm to catch up with the demon race and see what is going on." Having said this, Ji Tian paused for a while, looked at Guanglong and said with a serious expression, "But I still have to tell you that you must be careful in everything you do. Although the people from demon race do not pose a big threat to you, it is not certain whether they have a strong man of the same realm as you secretly." Hearing this, Guanglong raised his eyes and glanced at Ji Tian, and nodded heavily to reassure him. Then he walked out of the city lord's palace with his head held high, got on his horse in the barracks, led 10 more powerful men from the celestial immortal realm, and chased demon race in the direction of retreat. Meanwhile, on the other side, Two magic soldiers sat on a flying eagle, their eyes flickering, as if they were thinking about something. In fact, with the strength of the two golden immortal third layers, they could directly use the imperial sky riding art, but the two did not do so because they were afraid of consuming their own mana. After all, imperial sky riding art requires a lot of mana. If you encounter a powerful enemy during flight and you happen to have no mana at that time, the situation will be very serious. So under normal circumstances, as long as there is no emergency, you will almost never choose the imperial sky riding art. Instead, you will catch a monster to ride with you. This situation is not uncommon in the 10 realms, and many people do this. Unless your strength reaches Immortal King, because only Immortal King can have terrible mana recovery speed. As for why Guanglong doesn't fly, this is because he prefers riding war horses. Guanglong likes the wanton rush of riding a war horse, and the thrill of killing enemies while riding a war horse. The general leading the troops this time is Martial King Ji Tian, one of the 3 kings of the Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty. With the strength of our 2 golden immortal third layers, we are no match for him. If there is no support from above, it will be very difficult or even impossible for the 2 of us to defend the captured city. The former looked at the latter and analyzed. Hearing this, the latter nodded and replied, "That's true, so the most important thing this time is to look at that formation. After all, that formation has the ability to kill Immortal King realm experts." In fact, the Demon Palace handed over this formation to the 2 of them for safety reasons. This formation also gave the 2 of them confidence. Otherwise, how could they be so confident that they dared to directly challenge the Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty? After a while, Guanglong, who was riding obediently on his horse, saw the dark crowd in front of him, his eyes flashed coldly, and the next moment, he saw a black spear emerging from his hand. "See if I don't kill you today and make you cry for your father and mother." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 263. After the words fell, Guanglong's body shook, and his strength exploded with all his strength. The powerful mana wrapped the spear in Guanglong's hand, and then he aimed it at the demon race in front and threw it at the crowd. Boom! The spear rushed like a ferocious python, and within a few breaths, thousands of demon race warriors died in the hands of the spear. Such a sound naturally startled the 2 people on the flying eagle. "As expected, we are chasing you." "No, we are not within the formation yet. We must speed up, otherwise it will be dangerous." As soon as the words fell, the 2 controlled the flying eagle and rushed into the formation at an extremely fast speed, completely ignoring the life and death of the people behind them. After all, the demon race does not share the same hatred, but also has factions, similar to today's human race. Seeing the 2 figures riding the flying eagle, Guanglong's eyes were extremely cold and he snorted, "I want to see what conspiracy you have that is so big." After saying this, Guanglong abandoned his horse and stepped into the sky. Then he thought of something again, looked sideways at the 10 people behind him and said with a serious look on his face, "Don't follow me, just follow me. If you encounter a demon race that you can kill, kill him." Upon hearing this, the 10 people quickly shouted to obey. Then Guanglong's figure disappeared in front of the 10 people, and he caught up with the 2 demon soldiers in just a few breaths. Seeing the somewhat panicked expressions on their faces, Guanglong smiled coldly and mocked, "It was so satisfying to kill my people in the Great Zhou Dynasty before. Why did you run away so fast when you saw me coming? You don't really think that can you escape?" Snort. Guanglong snorted coldly, and the spear appeared in his hand instantly as if it came into contact with some command. I saw Guanglong holding the spear tightly, the magic power on his body shaking uncontrollably, and a large amount of immortal energy like the Yangtze River could not stop being poured into the gun body. In an instant, the sky became dark, thunder clouds rolled, and a thunderstorm as big as a bean fell instantly. I saw Guanglong holding his spear high and shouting, "Yeshan!" The sound was so loud that it resounded throughout the sky, and Guanglong now sounded like a thunder god, sounding like a law enforcer. The next moment, a figure wearing golden armor with an unclear face emerged from the sky. He was holding a sky-reaching spear in his hand, and golden thunder and lightning flashed faintly in the spear. Suffer death. Then this figure, under Guanglong's control, threw the spear in his hand. Guanglong's body shook, and his own strength erupted like a volcano. The powerful mana wrapped the spear in Guanglong's hand, and once again aimed at the demon race people in front and threw it. Boom! The golden spear and the black spear began to cross and merge, and a powerful aura erupted, charging straight away like a giant dragon, and the sound resounded thousands of miles away. In an instant, the breath of the spear instantly killed the nearby demon race strongmen, and a large number of screams filled the world. Such a shocking scene left the two demon soldiers stunned. Before they could react, the spear seemed to sense their aura, and once again erupted with a terrifying aura, aiming at the two and charging towards them. Swish! The moment the spear flew over, the sound of piercing the air resounded instantly, and the sound was as magnetic as a Sanskrit sound. When the two demon soldiers heard this sound, they had a headache and were a little confused, but they gritted their teeth and persisted. They didn't want to die yet, so they looked at each other and nodded heavily. The next moment, the two people were seen giving their life force, the breath of life was released, and the originally desolate ground was instantly filled with vibrant green grass. The two used the power of life to speed up their escape. Despite this, the two of them still couldn't escape the pursuit of the spear. The spear looked like a golden dragon, and the two rays of light faintly emanating from the tip of the spear were like the dragon's eyes. Seeing this scene, Guanglong did not stay where he was. He exploded and continued to chase the two at lightning speed. But the crisis is coming. With a snap of a finger, time stopped at that moment. And Guanglong's flying figure suddenly stopped in mid-air, taking with it the magic power of all his movements. Feeling the power in his body, Guanglong's pupils shrank and he looked horrified. He knew that he had fallen into the trap of the two of them. He tried to break free but found that he could not move at all. There is no way, this is Guanglong's shortcoming in itself. What he likes is to defeat all means with force. Guanglong feels that as long as he is strong, no matter what plot he encounters, he dares to block it with his own strength. At the same time, at the moment Guanglong was controlled, the golden spear in flight had also hit the two of them. The two screamed, and their souls were instantly shattered. The sound vibrated sharply, causing a roar in the sky, and then they fell to the ground. Dust and smoke were everywhere, and a hole was instantly formed in the ground with a radius of 10 miles. Such a scene is like a doomsday catastrophe. Naturally, the strong men hiding in the dark also saw it, but no one dared to save him. Because they knew what the formation that controlled Guanglong was. This formation is a time wheel formation with the power of law. Once you are penetrated by this formation, you will be stagnant at the moment you entered, unable to move at all. In addition to these, if you stay in the formation for a long time, your strength and cultivation will also drop significantly. Even if you break through, your future breakthrough speed will become slow or even stagnant. After all, people are selfish. No matter who is in front of them, even if it is Emperor Jikai who is still facing the great immortal, they will not save him because it is not worth it. Instead, they are happy to see this scene. Although Guanglong was controlled by the formation, the two demon soldiers who threatened the great Zhou immortal dynasty were also dead. But don't forget, there are still several demon race true immortal realm experts in the field, and there are also a large number of demon race personnel. Seeing Guanglong being controlled, everyone looked at each other, and then, Led by several demon race true immortal realm experts, they launched a counterattack against the remaining 10 celestial immortal realm experts. In less than half a stick of incense, the 10 powerful men from the celestial immortal realm of the great Zhou immortal dynasty were instantly killed by all the demon races. Many forces saw such a bleak scene, but still turned a blind eye. Their expressions were not moved at all, they just stared coldly. After finishing 10 celestial immortal realm strong men, demon race and others did not leave yet, but looked at each other again, a glimmer of light appeared in their eyes, and thick murderous intent flashed in everyone's eyes and began to gather. Then everyone nodded heavily and started to attack Guanglong, who was controlled by the formation. I saw everyone releasing powerful magic power instantly, and thick immortal energy gathered in everyone's palms, and began to attack Guanglong's body continuously. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 264. Boom. 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 Collisions came one after another, and all the attacks hit Guanglong's body. But the effect was minimal. Everyone still did not stop and continued to use this move. The magic power seemed to be free of charge, and they kept throwing it at Guanglong. Although these attacks have no effect on Guanglong, who has the peak of profound immortal realm, he can't stop being beaten. After all, the change of time will affect him. Now Guanglong has felt that his cultivation level is slowly declining. It is okay in the short term. If it continues to decline for a long time, then his cultivation level will drop to that of this group of people, and then some offensives will be launched against him. If it works, there will really be no place to die. But Guanglong was not afraid, he just felt a little unwilling to accept it, and he also hated why his mind was so stupid. Guanglong's eyes were shining brightly, and his mind was filled with thoughts. Thoughts one after another kept flashing through his mind. This was when he was recalling scenes from the past. Guanglong was controlled by the formation here, but Ji Tian didn't know it, because the forces observing in secret chose to hide it, and seemed to want to use demon race's hand to weaken the strength of the great Zhou immortal dynasty. It is enough to show the vicious intentions of the sects and these forces in the great Zhou immortal dynasty. Qin Feng, who was hiding in the dark, also saw this scene. His eyes moved, he thought for a while, then looked at the 5 people behind him and ordered, "It's time to take action. You go and kill these demon race bastards below, kill it first, and I will ask the master about this formation first to see if he has any solution." Hearing this, the 5 people nodded heavily, then took out the law weapon and charged towards the demon race people below. At this time, everyone in demon race was still immersed in the fantasy of insulting Guanglong, and they were not aware that they were about to face death. I really didn't expect that a person in the human immortal realm like me could beat a strong man in the profound immortal realm into such a miserable state. I am really the proud ancestor of the Yaozong, ha 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 ha. Yes, I have to teach this guy a lesson today and let him know not to think that because he is strong, he can kill us. Yes, brothers, work harder, this guy won't be able to hold on anymore. Then everyone immediately increased their magic power, and countless moves were thrown at Guanglong again. Gradually, a trace of cold sweat broke out on Guanglong's forehead. His strength has begun to drop to golden immortal. If he continues like this, his strength will drop to true immortal before long, and then he will really be death is approaching. Just when Guo Guanglong was thinking about what to do, he saw a burst of screams from below demon race. Ah! Hearing the screams, Guanglong looked up and saw several figures wearing black robes, their faces completely hidden, constantly shuttled among the crowd. Every time a few people take a step, a demon race head will fall, but within a few breaths, hundreds of people will die. And this also gave Gu Cheng a chance. You know, his mana is still full now. Whoosh! Seeing Guanglong being controlled high in the sky, Qin Feng threw it directly without hesitation. Because the 2 of them had just used all their mana to cast spells on Guanglong, Now they had no extra mana and could only rely on instinctive attacks. Unfortunately, that man was also vigilant. When he saw the dragon-wrapped needle flying over, he cut it in half with a knife. Seeing this, the man snorted coldly and said disdainfully, "I thought it was some kind of treasure." I saw a dragon-wrapped needle emerging from his hand. Needless to say, there is no need to say anything about this thing. Feeling the aura of demon race true immortal realm powerhouse, Gong Mo, who was wearing black robe, frowned, but he didn't have any fear. The next moment, Qin Feng's figure appeared in front of several people. This is really in line with the saying pig teammates. Then he thought of what Chopin said to him that day, and Guanglong's eyes moved slightly. In less than half a stick of incense time, the two of them were killed by him. Hearing this, Guanglong bowed heavily to the 6 people and did not reply, but he kept this kindness in his heart. Just when he was feeling complacent, dozens more dragon-winding needles were aimed at him and rushed towards him. Now, there are only 2 demon race true immortal realm experts left in the field. When Guanglong saw it, he immediately left the place. This object is the formation breaking bead, which Qin Xian bought in the system mall for 500 system values. The 5 people saw this and did not pursue them. After all, these people were not very advanced and killing them would be useless. There were those people from the sect who refused to save anyone. Boom. 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 Blood flowed into the ground, and the smell of blood flew into the air. As soon as the 4 demon race experts from the true immortal realm died, the scene instantly became chaotic, and one demon race person after another began to flee in all directions. In an instant, the lost cultivation level also returned to Guanglong's body instantly from this moment on, so Guanglong could move again. There was no accident, the 2 of them were directly killed by the dragon-wrapped needle. After all, Guanglong has always been a person who repays kindness with kindness and revenge with hatred. He never likes to owe others. Looking at his body, Guanglong's face showed a burst of joy, and then he appeared on the ground. Looking at the 6 people in front of him, Guanglong clasped his fists with a smile and said, "Thank you 6 for saving my life. Guanglong here swears that if you have anything to do in the future, just come to me in the imperial capital of Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty, and I will definitely help you get it done." Unfortunately, the situation of the 2 of them is not optimistic either. While swinging the knife randomly, he made a mistake and accidentally hit a dragon-winding needle into the body of the person next to him. Hearing this, Qin Feng waved his hands with a smile and said indifferently, "It's nothing. Senior is a loyal man. I saved you just because I don't want to see Senior die like this." As if thinking of something, Guanglong turned his head, his eyes showing a hint of murderous intent. Seeing this scene, the man panicked and kept swinging his knife. I saw that he was still holding a white bead in his hand. The next moment, the formation breaking bead shattered, releasing a silver-white light, and the time wheel formation also shattered at this moment. Gong Mo didn't hesitate and stabbed one of them directly in the chest. Seeing this scene, Guangdong snorted coldly, with a trace of disgust flashing under his eyes, and sneered, "You are a bunch of dog bags. When this war is over, I will definitely tell His Majesty to eat you up. Then you just thinking about how to make excuses, huh?" Seeing this scene, the remaining true immortal realm experts in demon race moved their eyes and showed their murderous intent. Without hesitation, they took out their law weapons and rushed directly towards them. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 265. Turning around, he leaned over to look at the 6 people, clasping their fists, and asked, "Are some of the forces that killed Sirius, one of the 12 demon race generals, that day?" Hearing this, Qin Feng's eyes flashed and he nodded. "That's right, we killed Sirius." Hearing this, Guanglong's eyes flashed with a golden light. He did not think that the strength of a few people was low, so he looked down on others, because Guanglong couldn't see through the Qin Feng in front of him. Then he asked, I wonder, little brother, can you tell me the name of the force you belong to? I finally waited for the sentence. Qin Feng was secretly happy, but his face was still cold, and he replied, my power is called Profound Heaven Section. This name does not exist in the 10 domains, because we are a hidden power. The reason why we took action today is that we are about to appear in this world. Guanglong nodded, did not speak, but secretly remembered the Profound Heaven Sect in his heart, and then a thought flashed in his heart. After hesitating for a moment, he clasped his fist at Qin Feng again and said, I, the great Zhou Immortal Dynasty, I wonder what you think of my friendship with Profound Heaven Sect. Qin Feng's eyes lit up when he heard this, but he did not choose to nod immediately in agreement. He looked at Guanglong and replied, I still have to think about this matter. After all, Profound Heaven Sect is not decided by me alone. As long as the person behind me agrees, it will be fine. Oh, Guanglong's eyes flickered, he nodded and said nothing more. Then another token appeared in his hand, and he saw Guang written on it. He handed the token to Qin Feng and explained, this is my personal jade token. If the person behind the little brother agrees, then just crush the jade token. Of course, if the little brother encounters any danger, you can also crush it and I'll get there as quickly as possible. Upon hearing this, Qin Feng did not refuse, but accepted the token. Afterwards, the two chatted for a few more words and established a relationship. After chatting, Guanglong left here to look for the bodies of 10 generals. After the search, he returned to Feng Cheng and prepared to explain what happened to Ji Tian. Let him take advantage of the fact that the magic soldiers and formations are gone and directly take back the remaining city. Looking at Guanglong's leaving figure, Qin Feng looked at the 4 people in Gucheng and said, they will start a war later, so you should go to Kaiwan City now and bring all the city lords of Kaiwan City over. Of course, if you encounter an emergency, you can also choose to kill him. Hearing this, the 4 of them nodded, and then their figures disappeared. After the 4 people left, Qin Feng looked at Gong Mo and asked, do you choose to stay outside, or do you want to return to the realm? Hearing this, Gong Mo's expression showed a trace of hesitation, and he hesitated for a moment before replying, I'd better stay outside. After all, it's a bit boring to stay in the realm and practice. Qin Feng glanced at him, nodded, and immediately took him away from here. Gu Cheng, why do you, the people from the 7 Kills Hall, want to go against my demon race? Don't you know that the main hall of your 7 Kills Hall also has some relationship with my demon race? I have ordered that from now on, the 100,000 troops must not stand still and rush directly to the demon race position. I want to see who is the strongest. See what conspiracy they have set up. Of course, they would capture one city after another along the way, but they would not have any troops left behind. The man in black robe turned sideways to avoid the sword and took the opportunity to ask. Guanglong told everyone present everything he had just encountered. Inside the Kaiwan City Lord's mansion. At the same time, there was a burst of killing sounds in Kaiwan City, and a large number of demon race members were continuously killed. Wang Quan is also a person who has experienced life and death. He reacted instantly and turned sideways to avoid the blade. Hearing this, Gu Cheng, who was hidden under his black robe, changed his face slightly, but in the end he chose not to reply. Seeing this, the two had no choice but to resist. Unfortunately, due to the difference in realm, King Quan was repulsed in just a few rounds. Only the man in black robes could barely resist by relying on his true immortal realm strength. Blood was dripping on the ground. The man in black robe looked extremely painful and couldn't help but kneel on the ground. Seeing this scene, the two of them looked shocked. Wang Quan suppressed the restlessness in his heart and asked, "Who are you?" Feng Cheng, inside the city lord's mansion. He held the sword with both fingers, and the next moment, an extremely fierce sword energy attacked the man in black robe. Seeing this, the man in black robe could not resist, and his arm was accidentally chopped off by Gu Cheng. Wang Quan didn't say anything after hearing this, but he felt a bad premonition, and he still didn't understand what he said. At this time, the man in black robe explained to Wang Quan with a solemn expression what he had just experienced. The strength of the true immortal realm was released without hesitation, and the next moment, the auras of 3 more celestial immortal realms appeared. Such a situation made the man in black robe even more certain that this person was Gu Cheng. After hearing this, Ji Tian, who was sitting in the first seat, did not speak. His eyes kept turning and he was lost in thought. After a long while, he raised his eyes and looked at everyone and said in a deep voice, "Okay, if that's the case, let's end the battle as soon as possible." I saw a black sharp blade rushing towards him with an overwhelming momentum. The 4 of them didn't reply. They took out their low weapon and pointed it at the 2 of them before attacking. "That's right," the man in black robe nodded, "I only saw them using something and throwing it towards Guanglong, and the time wheel array was instantly shattered." Upon hearing this, Gu Cheng just snorted and said nothing. They attacked again, but this time the attack was more fierce than before, as if they wanted to quickly resolve the battle. But no matter what he did, he could never defeat Gu Cheng. In just a moment, the 100,000 troops had been assembled, and then under the leadership of Ji Tian, they headed towards Kaiwan City. Seeing this, the man in black robe had one idea after another in his mind, but unfortunately he rejected them all. Hearing this, everyone did not refute, shouted obey and left the city lord's mansion, returning to their own camp. "You should be Gu Cheng, the master of the 7 Kills Palace, right?" Then he followed the direction of the sword attack and saw the person coming. "You mean a mysterious force rescued Guanglong?" Wang Quan frowned and asked solemnly. "As for the royal power on the side, it has long been controlled by the 3 of them. After all, Gu Cheng's swordsmanship was so elegant that he was overwhelmed by the blow and could only resist with all his strength." During the battle, the man in black robe seemed to have guessed who the person in front of him was. The person who came was a man in a black robe that covered his entire body, and he was none other than Gu Cheng. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 266. Hearing this voice, the man in black robe became even more desperate. He suppressed the pain in his arm, gritted his teeth and looked at Gu Cheng and asked, "I didn't expect you to join forces with the great Zhou immortal dynasty to attack my demon race, but have you ever thought about the consequences?" Hearing this, Gu Cheng didn't say anything. He moved and without hesitation, he thrust the sword into the black-robed man's brow. "Ah!" The man in black robe screamed, unable to tilt his body, and fell down. But Gu Cheng still did not relax his vigilance, and then used a few more sword strikes. When he saw that the man in black robe did not react at all, Gu Cheng breathed a sigh of relief. Then he glanced at Wang Quan again and did not choose to kill. "The mission is accomplished, let's go." Hearing this, the 3 of them nodded and disappeared here with the royal power in hand. When Guanglong and his people came here, they saw only the body of the man in black robe, and no one else was seen. Seeing this scene, Guanglong frowned, then walked over, carefully examined the sword wounds on the black-robed man, and felt a familiar aura from it. "It's them," Guanglong murmured, his eyes kept moving, as if he was thinking and considering. Until Marshal King Ji Tian came to him, patted his shoulder and asked, "General Long, did you discover something?" After hearing this, Guanglong came to his senses and decided to hide it. He looked at Ji Tian and shook his head and said, "I didn't find anything." "Well." Hearing this, Marshal King sighed slightly, shook his head and said, It's a pity that the traitor to Wanquan was not found, otherwise I would have made him suffer a life worse than death. Having said this, Ji Tian seemed to have thought of something again, and looked at Guanglong Xiang and asked, by the way, the profound heaven sect you mentioned, I wonder if they can still appear? After all, after receiving such credit, I think we should go up just report it face to face. Hearing this, Guanglong shook his head and replied, I don't know about this, but I believe it won't be long before they show up on their own. Seeing this, Ji Tian said nothing more. Returning to the city lord's palace, he began to check each city to see if there were any missing places. Guanglong seemed to have thought of something and said, this time the Tianyun immortal sect near Kaiwan city saw demon race causing trouble to the people, but chose to turn a blind eye. Do I think we should ask the sect leader to ask questions? Hearing this, Ji Tian touched his chin, waved his hand and said, forget it, let's wait until I return to court this time to report to your majesty. In addition to this sect, there are other forces. I believe that your majesty will never be lenient with his temper. Them. After hearing this, Guanglong nodded and said nothing more. Then he came to the barracks stationed outside the city. At this time, all the soldiers had gathered there. Seeing the arrival of the two men, the soldiers quickly shouted, Marshal, Deputy Marshal. Seeing this, the two nodded slightly and walked to the general ordering platform. Prepare to pay tribute to the soldiers and heroes who died this time. Among them, Han Chuang, the Lord of Weun City, was specially mentioned. The Lord of Weun City, Han Chuang, used the strength of a celestial immortal realm to kill 3 demon race experts from the celestial immortal realm. He did not escape in the end, but continued to fight to the death with a true immortal realm expert and fell off a cliff. We don't know life or death, so I hope you will remember the hero Han Chuang and learn from his spirit. Ji Tian stood on the general stage with a serious expression on his face and uttered solemn words. He changed Han Chuang's pursuit in the true immortal realm to a life and death battle in the true immortal realm, which also left him a good impression in everyone's minds. Impression. When the soldiers below heard this, they nodded heavily, with determination in their eyes. Although we have repelled demon race, we have not eliminated it, because this is just a test of demon race against us, so from now on, I will lead you to defend Kaiwan town and will not let that demon race has once again stepped into the territory of the great Zhou immortal dynasty. I wonder if you would like it. Yes, I do. I'm willing. I'm willing. The crowd shouted loudly, with high spirits and no trace of fear. Seeing this scene, Ji Tian felt a little relieved and said with satisfaction, these are the soldiers of his great Zhou immortal dynasty. Mangaizuka. Qin Xian's figure appeared here, and behind him stood Qin Feng. Ding, mission completed, rewards distributed. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining 5,000 system value, 2 rank 3 mortal immortal jade beads, celestial immortal realm cultivation. After the system's words fell, Qin Xian's strength instantly crossed 2 small realms from the earth immortal realm late stage to the celestial immortal realm. At the same time, Qin Feng's strength also came to the celestial immortal realm, but he was not surprised at all, and his expression remained calm. Main body, the current situation should be able to establish the profound heaven sect, right? Qin Feng looked at Qin Xian and asked. Upon hearing this, Qin Xian's eyes lit up and he nodded, of course it's okay. Just ask the system. System, can I use mission values to establish a sect? Ding, of course it's possible. Hearing this, Qin Xian's eyes lit up and he ordered, well, let's build a new profound heaven sect on this tomb of 10,000 ghosts. Just do what I want in my mind. Ding, spend 2,000 system values to establish a sect. As soon as he finished speaking, Mangi tomb was instantly covered by a fog. One after another golden light emerges from it, making it look like a place of Buddha's light. Such a situation naturally attracted a large number of people, and even Guanglong, who was in Kaiwan City, saw it. This is this. After half a stick of incense, the sound of the system being completed sounded. The figures of Qin Feng, Qin Xian, and Gong Emo appeared in a magnificent hall with 8 sky-reaching stone pillars. And a mirror image appeared in front of the 3 people. Above are the major peaks of the sect, and what they look like on the peaks. I saw lofts rising up one after another on the mountain peaks, one after another majestic, ancient, and vicissitudes of giant buildings rising, as if the heaven and earth were helping you build it. Such a situation naturally made Gong Mo on the side stunned and looked at the scene in disbelief. There are several iron chains hanging on each mountain peak, and the iron chains are surrounded by white clouds. Looking out, you can only see the mountain peaks shrouded in white clouds, but you can't see the scene on the mountain peaks at all. It can be said that the current Profound Heaven sect is a sect completely suspended in mid-air. In addition to these, there is also a formation that reaches the sky in Profound Heaven sect. The formation said, heaven-destroying, earth-destroying formation. As the name suggests, it has great power, but it cannot exert its full power now and must wait for Qin Xian's own strength to increase. The current all heavens and earth destruction formation can only cross 2 major realms in a row and kill the strong men who are close to the section. Of course, under normal circumstances, the formation is activated with Qin Xian's wishes. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 267. It is equivalent to Qin Xian currently only having the strength of the celestial immortal realm, but the formation can kill the strong men of the golden immortal realm, and Qin Xian also discovered that his field of destruction can be used together with the formation. This is also what makes Qin Xian most satisfied. Then he looked at the buildings of the sect one after another in the mirror image, and couldn't help but nodded and said with satisfaction, "That's right. It's quite a profit to be able to use the remaining system value to exchange for such a satisfactory sect." Then he waved his hand, and everyone in the realm appeared in the hall. Looking at the unfamiliar scenes around them, everyone looked at Qin Xian above with some confusion. "I don't know, Sect Master, where is this?" Leng Gu, wearing a golden Suanwei robe, stood up and asked with a doubtful tone. Upon hearing this, Qin Xian looked at Qin Feng aside. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng nodded, coughed slightly, and explained. "You don't need to panic. From now on, this is the new Profound Heaven sect, and the peaks outside have been arranged for you, so now, you can choose the peak you like." After everyone heard this, their expressions of panic instantly turned into joy. He bowed his hands to Qin Xian, then immediately walked out of the hall and began to choose the mountain peak he was on. But what I saw was a beautiful scene. I saw birds flying everywhere near Profound Heaven sect, clouds and cranes wandering around, and the breeze blowing the leaves on the branches, causing a rustling sound. The calls of birds and cranes are as sweet as a beautiful melody. This feeling made everyone very comfortable, as if the irritability hidden in their hearts before was no longer there. This place is so beautiful. As expected of the sect leader, I found such a suitable place so quickly. An elder from the human immortal realm saw the scene and said happily, "Yes, but don't be happy, haven't you seen the other elder peak masters going to grab the peak? They are still admiring it now, let's go quickly too." Upon hearing this, the elder reacted instantly, hurriedly took out his sword, stepped on it, and searched among hundreds of peaks for a suitable peak for him to live in. An hour later, there was talk and laughter wandering outside the hall. The sound was very happy, as if it was a group of children who had not grown up yet. It is not difficult to guess that the elders have found a suitable mountain peak. Seeing everyone smiling and smiling, Qin Xian said nothing and just watched them walk into the hall. After everyone entered the hall, they coughed heavily. Cough. When everyone heard the cough, they quickly reacted, returned to their positions with respectful expressions, and then shouted to Qin Xian, "See the sect master." Hearing this, Qin Xian nodded and said in a deep voice, "Since you have all found your own mountain peak, it's time for me to get down to business." After hearing this, everyone quickly cheered up. The place we are now is the immortal domain among the 10 domains. There are countless powerful people here. There are so many powerful people like you in the human immortal realm, so I would like to give you a solemn mention. That means from now on, you only need to stay in the sect and practice without any worries. You don't have to do anything else. And you don't have to worry about the resources, I will also give them to you. Anyway, I have only one order, and that is to do your best to improve your cultivation to the celestial immortal realm. Only with this level of cultivation can you have the ability to go out and make a living. After hearing Qin Xian's coherent words, everyone looked at each other and nodded solemnly. "As you command, Master." Then Qin Xian distributed all the resources given by Gukun these days to them, and then waved his hand to indicate that he could retreat. "It seems like I thought of something again. System, is there any way to hide the sect so that outsiders can't find it at all?" Ding, of course you can. As soon as the system finished speaking, the profound heaven sect originally built on the Mangi tomb disappeared out of thin air in an instant, as if it had never appeared. The people who were attracted by the golden light arrived here at just this moment, but the ending disappointed them. Where's the golden light? Why is the golden light just now missing? What's going on? Why is the golden light just gone? The crowd was in an uproar for a moment, and they were a little overwhelmed, but they still searched carefully nearby for a while, but couldn't find it. Damn it, who is cheating on me? If I catch him, I will cut him into pieces. That's right, I was doing my business just now, but when I heard that there was a golden light on the Mangi tomb, I rushed over immediately, and I didn't even finish my business. Seeing this, everyone was helpless and could only go home. Of course, there were naturally some people who did not believe in evil and continued to search here. Unfortunately, they searched for several hours and could not find a golden shadow. They left here after an angry curse. As for why everyone cares so much about Jingguang, that's because in the 10 realms, where there is golden light, it usually means that there are top treasures in the world. Who wouldn't care about this? Not long after, Guanglong's figure also appeared here, looking at the vicinity with a vigilant expression, and murmured, "What's going on? Why did the golden light just disappear suddenly? I remember that the golden light was very strong." Guanglong's expression couldn't help but reveal a hint of doubt. In the main hall of Profound Heaven Sect, a mirror image appeared in front of Qin Xian, in which a deist figure was walking back and forth. This person is Guanglong. I saw Gong Mo and Qin Feng standing next to Qin Xian. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng looked at Qin Xian and said softly, "Sect Master, in my opinion, why not call him in? After all, he said he wanted to make friends with our section. If he succeeds, he will also be a helper to our section." Hearing this, Qin Xian nodded and waved his hand. Guanglong, who was standing on the Mangi tomb, was confused and suddenly felt his body flying somewhere uncontrollably. Such a situation frightened Guanglong and he quickly resisted, only to find that he could not move at all. In an instant, a black vortex appeared in front of Guanglong, and Guanglong flew directly into it. The next moment, Guanglong's figure appeared in the hall. As soon as he appeared here, Guanglong's expression instantly became alert, and his spear appeared in his hand. The aura on his body was faintly erupting, as if he wanted to give the attacker a fatal blow. Guanglong's eyes kept scanning around until he saw the 3 deist figures above. Rebirth of Fantasy, Obtain the Sect System. Author, Red General. Chapter 268. Guanglong frowned until he saw Qin Feng wrapped in a black robe. Who is this person? Why do I feel a familiar aura on his body? Before he could ask questions, Qin Feng from above came over, clasped his fists at him and said, "General Guang." Hearing this, Guanglong frowned, but the voice was too familiar. Then he stared at this person and exclaimed, "Are you Qin Feng?" "Yes, it's me." "What you see now is the main hall of my sect." Qin Feng nodded, pointed at Qin Xian above, and explained, "And he is the sect leader of Profound Heaven section." Hearing this, Guanglong's face was shocked. He looked up at Qin Xian in the main hall and found that he felt a dangerous aura on his body. Feeling Guanglong's gaze, Qin Xian looked at him without hesitation, his eyes sparkling. At this time, Qin Xian already has the strength to kill Guanglong. After all, his destruction realm can lower him to a larger realm and become golden immortal, and his strength will also reach the celestial immortal realm. And the Sect's formation can just kill the golden immortal. It can be said that Qin Xian already has the capital to clamor with Guanglong. Feeling the slight pressure faintly emanating from Qin Xian's body, Guanglong felt a trace of fear in his heart, but he still carried it on. He couldn't help but take a breath, clasped his fists at Qin Xian and said, "I am General Guanglong of the Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty. This time, I brought the Holy Order of the Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty with the intention of making friends with the Ling Zone. I wonder, Your Excellency." Hearing this, Qin Xian did not speak, but pondered for a while before replying, "As long as the Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty comes with sincerity, then I, Profound Heaven Sect, will naturally agree." Hearing this, Guanglong was overjoyed and nodded immediately, "I, Dazhu Immortal Dynasty, only have sincerity and will never have any other intentions towards Profound Heaven Sect, so you can rest assured. What's more, your subordinate Qin Feng saved my life. How could I harm the person who repays my kindness with my malicious thoughts?" After hearing this, Qin Xian showed a smile, nodded and said, "Okay, since General Guang said so, I, Profound Heaven Sect, will give you a big gift today." Hearing this, Guanglong was stunned and couldn't help but feel a little confused. The next moment, the four figures from Gucheng appeared in the hall, and among them there was an embarrassed figure. This person was Wang Quan. Looking at Wang Quan's figure, Guanglong frowned. Although he was a little confused as to why Wang Quan was in the hands of Profound Heaven Sect, he still resisted his intention to ask. He took a breath, tried his best to calm down, and bowed to Qin Xian, "Thank you very much. This person is exactly what I want." Seeing this scene, Qin Xian raised his eyebrows, a little confused about Guanglong's reaction. "Aren't you going to kill him?" Hearing this, Guanglong shook his head and replied, "It's not necessary. Killing him like this is too easy for him. When he is taken to the imperial capital to await His Majesty's decree, there will be thousands of punishments waiting for him." Seeing this, Qin Xian nodded and said nothing more. Guanglong below seemed to have thought of something. He looked at Qin Xian and asked, "I wonder if you can send me back with him? I have some things to deal with." Qin Xian glanced at him, nodded, and then waved his hand. The next moment, the figures of Guanglong and Wang Quan disappeared from the main hall and appeared in Mangi Tomb. Looking at Wang Quan on the side, Guanglong snorted coldly, grabbed his neck with his hands, and dragged him towards Kaiwan City like a dead pig. After a cup of tea in the Lord's Palace of Kaiwan City, looking at the royal power brought back by Guanglong, Ji Tian, who was sitting in the first place, was a little happy but also a little confused. "I am happy that Guanglong brought the royal power back, but I am confused about how Guanglong brought it back." Ji Tian suppressed the doubts in his heart and asked, "General Guang, what's going on with you? Hasn't Wang Quan escaped?" After hearing this, Guanglong told Ji Tian everything he had experienced just now. After hearing this, Ji Tian's face was shocked, but he quickly calmed down and said, "You mean you went to that sect, and the sect leader handed this person over to you?" "Yes," Guanglong nodded. Seeing this, Ji Tian nodded and said nothing more. Then he walked over from the top, looking down at the embarrassed figure of Wang Quan, and said coldly, "I wonder if Mr. Wang still recognizes me." Hearing this, Wang Quan, who was lying on the ground, raised his eyes, smiled at Ji Tian's expression, nodded, and replied, "How could I not recognize Ji Tian, one of the three kings?" Hearing this, Ji Tian snorted coldly and asked, "Wang Quan, then you should also know what the crime of betraying the human race is, right?" Wang Quan nodded and said nothing, seeming to have accepted his fate. Seeing this scene, Ji Tian was really angry and wanted to laugh. "I, King Quan, don't understand you. As a city lord, you clearly have the power to reach the sky. Why do you want to be demon race's spy? Didn't I, the great Zhou immortal dynasty, give you anything good? Or do I, the great Zhou immortal dynasty, have anything to say to you?" Wang Quan shook his head when he heard this, coughed a few times, and said quietly, "The great Zhou immortal dynasty was very kind to me, and he never felt sorry for me. Everything was blamed on my poor eyesight back then. I was too greedy for power. In order to gain power, I had already forgotten my identity. It's the mission of humanity, so I joined the demon race." Hearing this, Ji Tian sighed and said nothing more, but he could not hide his disappointment in him. Then he turned to look at Guanglong aside and ordered, "Guanglong, you can take the royal power back with you. I still have to stay in Kaiwan City to prevent demon race from causing trouble again, so I'm sorry to trouble you." Hearing this, Guanglong's face trembled, he nodded heavily, cupped his fists and said, "Leave it to me." Then two soldiers walked in, carrying the embarrassed Wang Quan and following Guanglong outside. Meanwhile, on the other side, Demon Realm, inside the Demon Palace. Sitting on the dark throne was a figure wearing a black mysterious robe. The mysterious robe covered all its face, only revealing a pair of exposed eyes. There was a glimmer in the eyes, as if in a moment of despair. It brought a glimmer of hope to everyone. And he is the lord of the demon race, the demon lord. After a long time, a man in black armor appeared below. The man in black armor was seen kneeling on the ground with one knee and said respectfully, "Demon Lord." Hearing this, the demon lord nodded slightly and looked up at him. "It's just that the defeat of the demon race makes me very unhappy, and there is no need for this great Zhou immortal dynasty to exist. When I find an opportunity, you will take off the head of the current lord of the great Zhou immortal dynasty." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 269. Upon hearing this, the man's blood-red eyes lit up, he nodded, and responded, "As you command." Immediately, the figure disappeared here. After the man left, several statues suddenly appeared in the hands of the demon lord. Engraved on the statues were the current leaders of the major forces in the 10 domains. Immediately, 10 more statues appeared in front of the demon lord. It's just that these 10 statues are a little different. With just a statue, you will exude a kind of power, make people feel pious, and make people fall to their knees just by looking at it. Because this is the statue of the current 10 domain lords. The demon lord played with these statues in his hands for a while, and then crushed one of them. This power is left useless. As soon as the words fell, a mysterious force disappeared from the world, as if it had never appeared before. Inside the main hall of Profound Heaven Sect, Qin Xian sat on the throne with his chin on his hand, his eyes shining like stars, overlooking the entire hall, and the aura he exuded flickered in and out, as if the mountains would collapse and the earth would crack if he moved. Nowadays, Qin Xian is like a superior heavenly emperor. The speed of development is a bit slow. It's time for the Soul Palace and Shadow Palace to appear in this world. Qin Xian then opened the system interface. I saw rows of Kung Fu Pill characters all appearing in front of me. Qin Xian only paused for a moment on the characters, then moved his eyes away and turned to the techniques. Devouring Demon Technique. Practicing this skill will give you the power to devour others. After devouring, it will be transferred to yourself, which is very useful for improving your realm. Price, 1000 System Value. Shadow Demon Technique, 9th layer. Once you practice it, you can summon monsters hidden in hell. The higher the level of practice, the stronger the monsters you summon, and you can even summon monsters up to Immortal Emperor level. Price, 3000 System Value. Shadow Technique, the 7th layer. Once you practice it, your speed will be greatly improved. At the same time, you can hide your aura so that others cannot detect it. When you practice the 5th layer, you can summon a clone. The clone can, after practicing for a quarter of an hour, when you reach the 7th layer, you can gather the power of all your clones and superimpose your own strength without limit. Price, 2500 System Value. Qin Xian's eyes lit up when he saw the effects of the three techniques. Oh, after hearing the system's words, Qin Xian raised his eyebrows, touched his chin, showing a trace of interest, and then nodded and said. In an instant, a power that did not belong to them suddenly appeared in their minds. This was the power of the rank 3 Mortal Immortal Jade Bead. Qin Xian nodded, waved his hand, and saw two golden lights flying into the eyebrows of the two people instantly. Upon hearing this mission, Qin Xian was shocked, lowered his eyes, stroked his chin and murmured. And juvenile dragons are also very rare. This kind of physique is very powerful. It can summon the power of the ancient dragon. It is easy to kill enemies in a large realm with this kind of physique. Seeing Qin Xian, the four of them leaned over and cupped their hands and said, Sect Master. They will never be allowed back to the land of the dragon ancestor, so as time goes on, the demon dragon race will gradually disappear from the eyes of the world. The next moment, the two of them instantly reached the celestial immortal realm from the human immortal realm. After all, if demon race wants to assassinate an immortal dynasty emperor, it must be extremely powerful. With their current strength, they are completely like ants fighting against a giant dragon. Thinking of this, Qin Xian frowned slightly and sighed. The mission value he currently has is only 4100. Hearing this, Fang Gu and Gong Emo were shocked, with a hint of disbelief in their eyes. Ding, issue a mission, stop demon race from assassinating Ji Kai. After completion, you will get, Ancient Demonic Dragon Body, Juvenile Demonic Dragon, System Value of 30,000, Rank 5 Mortal Immortal Jade Bead. But with my current system value, I can only buy 2 pieces. As soon as he finished speaking, the system's voice sounded. Then he asked the system, System, is there any way to quickly earn system value now? The two of them suppressed their excitement, looked at Qin Xian, nodded and said, Don't worry, Sect Master, we will definitely complete this matter successfully. As strong men in the 10 domains, they naturally knew what the ancient demonic dragon body was like. It was the physique of the children born to demon race and dragon race several epochs ago. But it is undeniable that the magic dragon is no weaker than the 2 races of the 5-clawed golden dragon and the golden holy dragon, and is even stronger than the 2. After a long time, the figures of Soul Demon and Shadow Demon appeared in the main hall. When they saw Qin Xian's figure, they bowed their hands respectfully and said, Master. Then the 4 figures disappeared into the hall. These 3 techniques are very good, and they are very suitable for the current Shadow Palace and Soul Palace. Although they are a little evil, it doesn't matter. After thinking about it, I decided to buy the Devouring Magic Art and the Shadow Magic Art. As for the Shadow Magic Art, I could only buy it after I had the system value. Seeing the facial expressions of the two, Qin Xian also guessed what they were thinking, and added, Of course, I won't let you go in vain this time. I have the power of an ancient demon dragon body and a juvenile the magic dragon. As long as you do the best in this mission, I will give these 2 things to him. Ding, of course there is, let's see if the host dares to take it. Hearing the conversation, Qin Xian nodded, okay, in that case, I'll be waiting for your good news. Having said this, Qin Xian thought for a while, but he was not afraid at all. The next moment, Mo Chen, Fang Gu, Gong Mo, and Qin Feng appeared in the hall. However, they had no choice but to obey Qin Xian's words and could only nod. I didn't expect the reward for this mission to be so generous. And demon race actually wanted to assassinate the emperor of the great Zhou immortal dynasty. It's really rare. It seems demon race couldn't bear it anymore. Looking at the figures of the four people, Qin Xian's expression instantly became serious and he said in a deep voice. However, the difficulty of the task is indeed a bit high. If you dare to assassinate Ji Kai, it means that this person's strength must be above the immortal king level. I have received news that demon race is about to assassinate Emperor Ji Kai of the great Zhou immortal dynasty, and I, Profound Heaven Sect, are actually on good terms with him, so naturally I have to help him. After all, we are all now a person on a grasshopper, so this time it's up to the four of you to go to the imperial capital to protect Ji Kai's life. After hearing this, Mo Chen and Qin Feng naturally had no objections and nodded, but Gong Mo and Fang Gu on the side hesitated. Take the current 10 domains as an example, the possibility of the existence of demon dragon cubs is very small, or even non-existent. Although the demon dragon is also a type of dragon race, it is just a group that is hated by dragon race. If you have any tasks in the future, just send them directly. Rebirth of Fantasy, obtain the Sect system. Author, Red General. Chapter 270. But it wasn't over yet, two more techniques appeared in their minds. Qin Xian said without changing his expression. These two exercises are carefully selected for you by me, and they are also the most suitable for you. There are two reasons why I give you the exercises. The first is to re-establish the power of your second palace in the 10 regions. Second, I want you to carefully investigate what mysterious forces there are in the immortal domain, or whether there are any weird places. Having said this, Qin Xian paused for a while, stared at the two of them, and said coldly, I wonder if you two can do it. Hearing this, the two of them looked shocked, knelt down on one knee, nodded and said, I swear to the death to complete the mission assigned to me by my master. Upon hearing this, Qin Xian said nothing more and waved to the two of them, indicating that they could leave. Seeing this, the two figures disappeared from the spot. Watching the two people leaving, Qin Xian had a lot of thoughts in his heart. I believe that the strength of the two people with two skills will definitely increase greatly, and in a few months, the strength of everyone in the second hall will also make a big jump. Qin Xian can't help but look forward to it. After all, the power of the devouring demon art is very terrifying. It can swallow up 90% of a person's cultivation level and feed it back to him. 3 days later. Great Zhou Immortal Dynasty Imperial Capital. In the General's Mansion. You mean demon race will send strong men to assassinate His Majesty? Huanglong, who was sitting on the chair, stood up when he heard Qin Feng's words and looked at Qin Feng solemnly. That's right, Qin Feng, the leader, nodded and said quietly, this is not false, it is what our sect master told us. If you believe it, then explain the situation to the emperor of your great Zhou immortal dynasty as soon as possible, otherwise by the time the strong demon race comes to assassinate, it will be too late. Hearing this, Huanglong lowered his head, touched his lower lip, and his eyes moved slightly, as if he was thinking. If demon race really sends strong men to assassinate him, his strength must exceed his own, and even reach the level of immortal sovereign. Thinking about his great Zhou immortal dynasty, the strongest one is only the 9th layer of the immortal king realm. It is impossible to have the strength to resist the assassination of the powerful immortal sovereign. Because when a person's realm reaches the immortal sovereign realm, he has the power to control the laws. This law is not the mediocre law on the profound heaven continent. This is his own law. When you practice Immortal Sovereign, the power of all the laws in the world will appear in your mind, and you can choose 3 of these laws for practice. No matter which one it is a fatal blow to their great Zhou immortal dynasty. Seemingly thinking of something, Guanglong quickly crushed a jade token in his hand. The next moment, the figure of Prime Minister Chopin appeared in the sight of the 5 people. Looking at the 4 unfamiliar figures beside him, Chopin's expression did not change at all, as if he had already guessed who these 4 people were. Then he bowed his hands to the 4 of them and said, "I'm the Prime Minister of Great Zhou Dynasty, Chopin." Seeing this, the 4 people cupped their hands and replied, "This is Qin Feng, the Master of the Profound Heaven Sect Royal Beast Peak. This is Mo Chen, the Deputy Master of the Profound Heaven Sect Law Enforcement Hall. Down here." Hearing this, Chopin nodded with a smile. Guanglong on the side saw Chopin's figure, immediately walked to him, and told Chopin everything Qin Feng had just told him, word for word. After hearing this, Chopin's pupils shrank sharply, and his eyes turned to Qin Feng in front of him, as if he was asking if this was true. Seeing this scene, Qin Feng nodded heavily and said, "What our sect master said is naturally true, how can it be false? You can make your own guesses whether you believe it or not, but when your majesty is assassinated, then don't blame us for not telling us." Phew. Chopin nodded heavily and exhaled. This news was really shocking. You know, this is the emperor who assassinated the current Great Zhou immortal dynasty, and the person to assassinate them was demon race. He calmed down slightly and said solemnly to the 4 of them, "Thank you all for informing us of this news. I would like to express my solemn thanks here. Otherwise, once the Great Zhou immortal dynasty emperor falls, the consequences will be huge. It's just cholera that can't be stopped." Seeing this, Qin Feng waved his hand and said quietly, "It's just a small matter, but don't worry, we will also help you in this assassination. After all, our sect has made good friends with you, the Great Zhou immortal dynasty." Hearing this, Chopin nodded. Although the cultivation of a few people would not make any difference, since he agreed to help, he would naturally welcome it. Seeing Chopin's expression, Qin Feng seemed to have guessed something, his eyes flashed slightly, but he didn't say anything. Meanwhile, on the other side, on a giant mountain that towers over the sky, a man wearing black armor and carrying 2 swords appeared here. He crossed his arms and crossed his chest, staring down with a pair of blood-red eyes, looking at the endless imperial capital. The corner of his mouth curled up and he sneered, "Go against my demon race, then you, the emperor, will have to pay the price, huh." As soon as the words fell, a wisp of breeze blew by, and the man's figure disappeared here, as if he had never appeared before. In the palace, in the bedroom, Ji Kai, who was wearing a golden dragon-patterned robe, was sitting on a chair, holding a pen in his hand and sliding it around. It was one thing after another. At this time, Ji Kai was dealing with government affairs. "It's been a while since I burned incense. I saw a woman who was alluring to the country, and the most beautiful woman came in front of Ji Kai. The woman had a smile on her face. Such a smile made Ji Kai feel very comfortable, and the fatigue in her heart disappeared at this moment. The woman is Luo Binglan. Luo Binglan walked behind Ji Kai, rubbed Ji Kai's shoulders with her slender snow-white hands, and said softly, "Your Majesty also needs to take proper rest when handling government affairs. Don't be so overtired, otherwise I will feel distressed. What's more, there are other ministers." Hearing Luo Binglan's concerned voice, Ji Kai put down the fold in her hand and leaned on the chair with a comfortable expression, enjoying Luo Binglan's massage to her heart's content. Then, he held Luo Binglan's delicate palm and said, "Since I am the leader of a country, I must often deal with government affairs. Otherwise, if I don't deal with one less book, there will be more troubles in the immortal dynasty of the Great Zhou dynasty. Therefore, Every moment of my time affects the immortal dynasty of the great Zhou dynasty. The life of an ordinary citizen. Hearing this, Luo Binglan smiled and said softly, Your Majesty is really a wise king. I believe that the common people will often praise you. Hearing this, Ji Kai laughed. He liked Luo Binglan's praises more than the praises of the common people.